Hey, dear, my lovely Edu family. I trust that you are enjoying this break from school. I know many of us may still be in the classroom as we are doing summer classes, or we may still have to carry out our duties. Nonetheless, let me welcome you to Strategy Sunday. Yes, right here with Strategic Educational Consultancy Services, where the mission is to empower you, our educators. We are in the month of Jubilant July, and our feature is on the SEL, Social Emotional Learning Theory, and how it is that we can utilize it within our classrooms to benefit our students. Last week, we began by looking at what SEL is, what are the components, what are the benefits, and how they can help us in the classroom. This Sunday, we have with us Mrs. Tamari Johnson Williams. She's a trained guidance counselor. She's also a counseling psychologist with special emphasis on marriage and family counseling. She's also a lecturer for the past 9 years at the Northern Caribbean University in the Department of Teacher Education. We want to welcome you, Mrs. Tamari Johnson Williams, to our platform, and we know that you'll be sharing with us insightful tips on how it is that we can utilize SEL effectively to benefit our students. Welcome.
Hello. For this presentation, we're going to be looking at the topic utilization of SEL for teachers. We're going to be examining and exploring some strategies for the classroom, strategies and techniques that you can use, and just some general suggestions of how you can incorporate social and emotional learning into your classroom. So the first question we ask ourselves is, why is social emotional learning, or for the sake of this presentation, SEL, why is SEL important? Now, social and emotional learning, or SEL, aims to help students to better understand their thoughts and their emotions. It also helps them to become more self-aware, and with that self-awareness, they'll be able to relate to others and to develop a sense of empathy for those in their community, those that they have to deal with in their classroom, other individuals that they come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. SEL is helpful in both children and adults. As teachers, SEL is also important for you. It is important because it helps to increase self-awareness. It helps our students with their academic achievement and positive behaviors, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. When they go home, and of course, when they would have graduated, the skills that they would have learned through SEL are able to help them to maneuver their way into the world, to make better decisions, to become more competent at dealing with their emotions, and understanding how others feel. Now, research has shown that students who participate in SEL programs show significant increase in their overall grades and attendance. So, for example, a student who may feel defeated or discouraged or feel that they don't necessarily have the ability or the competence to do a particular problem or to take on a certain subject, if we incorporate SEL and we empower our students, we help them to understand their ability and we help them to see that they can do it and they have the potential, and we genuinely encourage them and we genuinely cause them to feel a sense of empowerment and to remove self-doubt and to help to channel their emotions in the right direction. We are in fact helping them with academic achievements, right? If a child feels self-defeated, right away they're going to have challenges with achieving, especially in the academic realm. The skills learned within a SEL program have been shown to help students better cope with emotional stress, to solve problems, and to avoid peer pressure. If a student is confident in who they are, their ability, their identity, if they know how to express their emotions, if they know how to resolve conflicts, whether external or internal conflicts, then chances are that they won't be as susceptible to peer pressure as a student who may not have that sense of development or that sense of accomplishment when it comes down to social emotional learning. When we look at social emotional learning or SEL, there are not just short term, but there are some long term benefits, benefits that your students will take with them when they leave the classroom, when they would have graduated and gone into the world of work. It is said that learning positive behaviors that extend beyond a purely academic level and of achievement can help your students to develop the soft skills that are required of many jobs. We know that employers are looking for individuals who are great at teamwork, individuals who have the ability to understand others, who can empathize, yes, who are able to problem solve without having to have somebody over them telling them they have to do it. They can actually take initiatives. They can be able to stand on their own and make decisions and solve a problem that may come up on the job. So you're not just preparing them for their exit exams, you're preparing them for life. This can help to set your students up for success in their academic pursuits, but also in their career, in their life. So, social emotional learning goes beyond the classroom, it goes into the homes, it takes them into their world of work, into their various professions and pursuits. So, how can teachers utilize SEL in their classroom? So, the strategies that I'm going to be sharing, the approaches I'm going to be sharing in this particular presentation will relate to the 5 core components of SEL. And you already know what they are, but I will just share them with you again. 1, self awareness. 2, self management. Number 3, social awareness. And number 4, relationship skills. And of course, number 5, responsible decision making, a very key component of SEL. And of course, this will help them to be shaped for their future self and their future endeavors. Ultimately, what we want for our students is for them to be successful, for them to become adults and citizens that are able to control their emotions, are able to manage their emotions, are able to solve problems, are able to resolve conflicts, and understand how to express themselves and understand how to even give criticism without causing harm. It's okay to be critical, but be critical in a constructive way. So, using these different strategies and modeling them as a teacher will help your student to become more competent at dealing with their emotions, of how to relate to others. So, we're going to be examining those 5 core components. And the first one is self awareness, accurately recognizing one's own feelings and thoughts and their influence on behaviors. So think about it. If you have a student in your classroom who can recognize their feelings, they understand their thoughts, and they understand how their feelings and how their thoughts and how their behavior affect others, then you have a winner. You're already on your way. So, as teachers, what can you do? Number 1, provide age appropriate vocabulary words. What I mean by this is encourage your students to express themselves, to express what they're feeling. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings that you're having? Tell me. So you encourage the students by giving them words that they can use to express themselves. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling angry. I feel defeated. I feel betrayed. So your student, you're giving them words, vocabulary words that are age appropriate, that they can use to express their feelings and express their thoughts. And this is very important because a child who is not able to express themselves become frustrated. You've heard about tantrums? Yes. Sometimes, many times for that matter, tantrums are caused by an inability to express what you're feeling, and you feel misunderstood, and you're not quite sure what you want to say. You know what you're feeling, but you're not quite sure how to express it. So, as teachers, we have to encourage our students to use the right words, the right vocabulary to express how they're feeling, what they're going through. And they're not always angry, and they're not always happy, and they're not always sad. There are other words that can be used to express themselves. I feel that I'm being picked on. I feel that no one is listening. I think this, so you allow them, you empower them by giving them the right vocabulary. Good. Number two, set up a peace corner in your classroom where your students can go and reflect on their feelings. And it's important that you give them that space because sometimes they may need the time to reflect on their feelings, to process what they're thinking. And it would probably even reduce the occurrence of them just bursting out and blurting out how they're feeling. You're giving them a space where they can go, and that corner should be set up in such a way that it's calming. It gives them quiet time to think. They have a relaxing area that they can sit and process. Maybe they can do their journaling. Maybe you can have a chart up as a teacher to have them recognize or acknowledge on the chart what feeling they're having. On our slide, we have um, or somebody who looks like they're upset or they're sad, and then the spectrum goes up, and of course the emotion changes. But the student should have that kind of a space, if it is at all possible, in your classroom where they be able to reflect on their thoughts, reflect on their feelings. Yes, this will also give them time to think about what they're going to say and to think about how to react to a particular situation. Very good. Number three, provide scenarios and ask students how each situation or experience might make them feel. So it may be a case where the student may not necessarily be experiencing that right now, but in presenting the scenario as a teacher, what you're doing is you're setting them up for success. That should in case they end up feeling that way, should in case they meet up on a similar situation, they may be able to express themselves. Or in the scenario, they may be to analyze a case and tell you what they would do, how they would feel, and you as a teacher can steer them and maybe suggest an alternative, right? But this will also help them with empathy. And then it also gives you, the teacher, an insight into how they feel and how they think about certain subjects. Number four, listen deeply to what your students have to say and reflect on what you heard about their feelings. You can use expressions like, it sounds like you're feeling this way. In doing this, you're helping your student to acknowledge their feelings, because you, for one, with the experience that you have as a teacher, you are helping them to put a name, put a face to that particular emotion. And in asking them if this is how they're feeling, or in expressing that you think that's what they're feeling, they're able to either say, no, I don't feel that way, I feel this way, right? Because in doing this, you're helping them to realize that you're listening, that they're being heard. Because a lot of times our students don't feel that they're being heard. They feel that the teacher disregards their feelings, that they disregard their opinions or their thoughts. Yes? And so as a teacher, you need to be able to listen deeply and to reflect on what you hear in terms of your students' feelings. Number five, talk about your own feelings in an age appropriate way. Now, as teachers, you may think, no, I don't want to tell the students how I feel. But in doing this, you're actually empowering them and you're actually modeling for them how they can express their feelings. And there may be situations where, as a teacher, you may feel frustrated, you may feel discouraged, you may feel disappointed. Let's say, for example, you give us the students a particular project or assignment, and in every effort that you think you made, you explained it, you told them what the requirements were, you gave them the rubric to follow, and then you realize that they did not do the assignment as required, or they didn't do the assignment at all. As a teacher who wants the best for your student, that could cause you to feel hurt, feel disappointed. You can express that to the students, and in doing this, you're modeling for them how it is that they can channel and process their own feelings. Number six, Have your students complete an age-appropriate project to identify their interests or their strengths. And it's very important that the students understand their own ability, understand what they like to do, understand what they enjoy doing, because this is one way that you're actually encouraging them to get to know who they are, to understand what they like, to understand how they think. Yes, giving them opportunities to explore so many different options until they find something that they're comfortable with, that plays on their strengths and their natural abilities. As a teacher, you are going to, of course, create diverse and alternative types of assignment and assessments to help your student to identify their strengths and their interests. And in doing that, they will feel a sense of accomplishment, they will feel understood, and they will feel that you are giving them the opportunity to be who they really are. Number 7, tell your students routinely why you, the teacher, feel happy or optimistic for them and their future. Because in you expressing how you feel and why you're enthused about the future, why you're optimistic about their ability, your belief in their ability, your expectation of them will go a far way in serving as a motivator. If you expect greatness from your students and you express this and you encourage and empower them, they're going to want to live up to that expectation for the most part. There are cases where some students have already pretty much given up and they may not necessarily feel that they can do it. They may not necessarily feel empowered. But remember, it's not a one-stop thing. It takes time and patience and effort on the part of the teacher. Yes? So express to them every now and then, why is it that you feel so happy or optimistic for them and their future? You're teaching them, for example, a particular concept or a skill, and they're not necessarily making the connections. You can help them to make the connections and then, of course, express to them why you feel the way you do about their ability to achieve and to use this particular skill in their future pursuits. Very good. The next component that we're going to be looking at is self-management. Now, self-management has to do with relating one's emotions, cognitions, and behaviors. Now, what can you as teachers do when it comes on to self-management? And bear in mind that these are not exhaustive. It's just a couple of them that I've touched on. There is so much more that you can do. But here are a couple. Number 1, help students think about pausing before they make decisions. And it's almost instinctive for us to just react sometimes. But it's very important for us to help our students to understand that sometimes you don't make very good decisions when you're angry, for example, because the decision is being fueled by the current state of emotion. So you're angry about something and you say something that's hurtful, or you do something, you make a rash decision, and you live to regret it. So what we want to do is to help our students to manage their emotions, to manage the choices that they make by taking a time to think about it, taking some time and thinking about and processing and separating the emotion from the decision, making a cognitive choice rather than an emotional choice. All right? Very important, because too often as human beings generally we do this. We sometimes make rash and lasting decisions based on an emotion that we're going through, based on a feeling that we have. And that can have consequences that we don't necessarily want to deal with. So it's important that we help our students to understand the importance of stopping, thinking, and then making a decision. Look at your options. Think about, if I make this decision now, what will be the implications later? Good. Number 2, teach effective age-appropriate self-management techniques to your students. So in the case where a student is upset and they are feeling irrational, you can help them by diffusing the situation, helping them to calm down by doing simple breathing exercises, taking some deep breaths, and making sure that in the breathing exercises that they're engaged in, that they're using that time to calm down and to process their thoughts. Counting to 10, that's an age-old one. If you feel that your emotions are so strong and you are so upset, or you find you're in such a rage that you can't necessarily think and you can't listen to anybody, because when you're so enraged, it's hard for you to even listen to anybody. Some folks will tell you their ears burn when they're angry, right? Counting to 10, and I'd like to tell my students, count even higher. If count to 10 doesn't work, count to 100. But taking that time to count, what it does, it takes your mind off the situation. It gives you, it's almost a distraction. So that counting process it calms you down. And self-talk, not just any self-talk, but positive self-talk is very important. A student, for example, who understands what is required of them, understands the standards and the expectations, they will help themselves through a challenge, through a problem, by positive self-talk. And we've seen examples of these. We've seen where individuals will stand in front of a mirror and tell themselves that they can do it, that they have the ability, that they're beautiful, that they're brilliant. Okay? So we can encourage our students to have or to practice positive self-talk, telling themselves that they can do it, or telling themselves it's not worth it. Just let it go. Whatever is required in the moment. And of course, mental rehearsal, rehearsing what you're going to say mentally, and also thinking about all sides of the scenario. Maybe predicting what the other person will say in a situation where there may be some conflict. And think about what you think the person may say, if you understand who the person is, and then processing it before you actually speak, before you actually maybe confront somebody about something, maybe do something. These are effective ways that you can help your students to manage themselves, their emotions, their actions. Very important. So counting, breathing exercise, counting to 10, self-talk, mental rehearsal. Very important. Establish a separate space in the classroom for individual self-management. A cozy corner, a happy place, a cool down corner, or a reading corner. We spoke about that earlier. Encourage your students to write in their journals. This has so much benefits, so many benefits. It is important that even if our students are young and they can't necessarily write, they're not necessarily good at writing, we can find different ways. We can give them stickers. We can find different ways to have them express how they feel. Yes, here we see an example of a chart or a wall that asks the student, what zone are you in? How are you feeling? And different emotions. The blue zone has things like I'm tired, I'm bored. The green zone, I'm feeling okay. The yellow zone, I'm worried. And the red zone, I'm feeling mad or angry. Yes? Very important that we have this established in our classroom. Now, teach a lesson that helps your students to think about possible outcomes before posting on social media. And the reason I included this one is sometimes students, especially with our or the time that we're living in with technology and everybody posting on social media, sometimes students will be upset about something and they'll simply share on the social media, either to attack somebody, or even if it has nothing to do with anybody else, sometimes they make decisions to post certain things but never really think about the implications or what can happen as a result. So especially for those of us who have older students, it's important that we help them to realize that they need to think about the possible outcome before they post in a public space like social media, because there are so many people looking on, and these are things that once they go out there, it's very hard to get them back. Now, as a teacher, what can you do? You can talk about how you motivate yourself when you need to. There may be days as teachers when you don't feel like coming to school. There may be days you don't feel like grading a paper, whatever the situation is, or even helping your student to understand how you motivated yourself while you were a student yourself. As a teacher, it's important that we consistently model effective self-management. Your students are watching you. They want to see what you're doing. They want to see how you react to certain situations. They are actually watching you and they are learning from you. So we have to be very mindful of that. No matter how young they may be, they are watching you. So be sure to model effective self-management. Self-control, yes. And the next component is social awareness, taking the perspective of and empathizing with others. Empathy is so important. What can you do as teachers? Teach students how to identify how others feel and what to look for to when a person is feeling a particular way. So you look for facial cues, you look for body language. A person can say something, but their body language is telling you something different. So as students, they need to be aware of what to look for. That will be an indication of how somebody else is feeling. Yes, you may say something and it causes somebody to feel hurt or upset. You can most likely see it on their faces. Their eyes will tell you a lot. Define and discuss the word empathy with your students. Being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Very important. Being able to see it from somebody else's perspective and understanding that everybody will see things differently because of how they were grown up, because of where they live, because of their personal beliefs. Yes? Routinely talk about how others feel in different situations. Very important. And number four, provide students with opportunities to share in small groups how they feel in different situations. So you can use the cooperative groups, you can have the students sit together and work out different scenarios and how they would feel if they were in this situation. Helping them to process and to be aware of how others would feel is very important. Build on the diversity in the classroom by having your students share the different cultural perspectives that they have or that they hold on different situations. And you must understand that every student that comes to you from a different background, a different environment. And so they will see things differently, they will understand things differently, they will feel differently about certain scenarios. And it's important that you as a teacher acknowledge that so your students can themselves do the same. Help your students to understand that people have different attitudes and values. As a teacher, you need to resist stereotypes. Don't stereotype your students. Don't get in the habit of doing that because a student comes in looking a particular way, sounding a particular way. They may have a particular religious belief or affiliation. You put them into a category. Don't do that. Because if you do that, you are actually modeling that negative behavior for your students. Teachers should recognize that despite differences, all students have similar needs, feelings, and wants. Yes? And you need to model respectful behavior. So sometimes as teachers, we don't take some students' hands, we don't allow some students to share in the classroom. That is not respectful. And so what you're doing is you're actually causing your students to do something which is similar. Yes? So it's important that you model respectful behavior so your students can do the same. The next component we're going to be looking at is relationship skills. Now, this has to do with establishing and maintaining healthy and rewarding relationships. And this is sometimes easier for some students than others. What can you do as a teacher? One, teach lessons to develop social skills. Now, it is important that our students understand how to meet and greet others, how to introduce themselves, for example, how to find out how somebody is doing. Let's say a new student comes into the classroom and that new student, needs to be able to adjust and to get to know others. If your other students understand how to make others feel comfortable, that's going to be a skill that they can use for life. Number two, teach lessons on social boundaries. As a teacher, it's important that students understand boundaries. It's important for your students to understand what is allowed, especially when it comes down to their age and rank and how to respect others in authority. These are important. Yes, it's okay. Um, In some schools, they will allow some students to call the teachers by their first name. In some schools, it's not allowed. It's frowned upon. So it's important that social boundaries are taught. And of course, students need to understand general ethics and certain guidelines when it comes on to those things. Number 3, work with students to develop community service activities. This is important. It's a skill that they're going to actually be able to use, not just as students, but when they become citizens, to be able to understand the importance of how what I do affects somebody else, how I can help to make somebody's life better, right? And there are many and varied community service activities that your students can engage in. And employers are looking for the students who are involved in community service, who are involved in outreach, in giving off their services voluntarily without wanting monetary reward. Very, very important. Number 4, use team-based collaborative teaching practices such as cooperative learning. And we know that cooperative learning has so many benefits. It helps you, the teacher, and of course your students. It encourages them to pull their weight, to contribute. It helps them to self-regulate. Helps them to understand that they can contribute something, they're part of a team. Yes? Encourages students to wait their turn. And for those students who actually wait their turn, acknowledge them. Number 6, establish a peace corner and a conflict resolution procedure that you use in your classroom, and teach this to the students so that they know what are the steps that they need to follow should in case a conflict arise. Number 7, model good boundaries. As a teacher, you have to model good boundaries. You cannot allow the students to get away with certain things, to do certain things, to become too familiar. You have to be very careful, very, very careful when it comes on to boundaries. Students need to know that you're the teacher and they're the students. Yes, especially when you're dealing with students who are not adults. And even when you're dealing with adult students, they still need to understand their place and understand that they are the students. Very important that you model good boundaries. Teach lessons on effective listening. We spoke about listening in an earlier slide and the importance of listening and empowering your students to learn how to actually listen effectively. Give your students opportunities to practice giving and receiving compliments and praise. And of course, as a teacher, there are many different ways that you can use to actually do this in your classroom. There are so many creative ways that you can do that. But some of the things that you can encourage your students to say, you're appreciated, thank you, terrific, you're great, you're awesome, you're a superstar. It depends on what you choose, but it's important that you afford the students opportunities to practice giving and receiving compliments and praise. Some persons don't take praise very well, but you need to encourage them to know how to appreciate, how to receive compliments, and to give them, of course. The last one that we're going to be looking at, a very key one that we mentioned, and this is one of those that's really going to be crucial for the student once they would have left the walls of your classroom, and that is responsible decision making, making constructive choices. What can you do as a teacher? One, teach your students a formula for making good decisions. Stop, calm down, spoke about that, processing, identify the problem. Consider the alternatives. What are the choices I have working with? Make a choice. Try it out and then reevaluate it. Was it the best choice? Could I have chosen something differently? Could I have done something differently? Very important that you afford your students those options, that you help them to formulate those steps. Very important, yes? Number 2, give your students problem scenarios. And we spoke about how you can give them scenarios and how these can help them, because it's important that you empower them by helping them to look at how a situation can play out. what choices they would make if they were in that particular situation. Number three, walk through the steps of problem solving in response to hypothetical situation, which is very similar to number two. Help your students to understand logical consequences. So even when you establish like your classroom rules, in doing that, you're to encourage the students to participate in establishing these rules and, of course, consequences for breaking these rules. In doing that, you're helping your students to understand that every action has some sort of outcome. It produces an outcome, whether it's good or bad. So they understand that they need to take responsibility for what they do, the decisions that they make, the choices that they make, because there's going to always be a consequence. Number five, model good decision making. As a teacher, if you can model good decision making for your students, you are already setting them up because they can already see that my teacher is making decisions. My teacher knows how to make proper decisions. Yes? So you encourage them and you empower them and you teach them how to make the choice between wrong and right. You teach them the importance of ethics and the importance of obeying the law. Very important. And make sure that whatever you're doing, your students can see in you somebody who is doing the right thing. So cannot say do this and then your action is contradicting what you're asking your students to do. So it's important. And as teachers, we are being watched. We are being watched, whether we are in the immediate classroom or we're out on the streets, we are being watched. So it's important that as teachers, we model good decision making and that what we do and what our students see us do are things that they can emulate and things that they can be proud of and you can be proud of if you should see your students doing that. Yes, very important. And finally, when it's all said and done, each of the SEL strategies can be used in a seamless way, but they all must first start from us as teachers. We, the teachers, have the power in our hands to make or break our classroom in how we want our students to feel, how we want our classroom to run, and what kind of students we want to produce. And don't think it's going to happen in one go, in one shot. It takes time. Social emotional learning isn't just a one-time thing. It takes time. It's an approach that brings all of these aspects into your classroom and supporting your learners every day. And understand that it will take some patience on your part. And you have to remember that ultimately what you're doing for your students by incorporating SEL strategies is helping them to become the kind of citizens that will make this place a better place. You're going to create that kind of environment in your classroom that is empowering, that your students can leave feeling that they can do anything, they can make right decisions, they can regulate their emotions, they can make good choices, and they can problem solve. You're setting them up for success when you incorporate the social emotional learning strategies into your classroom. Go now and make your mark.
What a treat it was, my Edu family. Yes, we got value and we are able to really look at it a little bit deeper to see how it is that we can really plug into SEL and utilize it into our classroom. Educators, as Mrs. Tamari Johnson Williams encourage us, that SEL should begin with us. The social emotional learning theory should begin with us. When we know it, when we practice it, we are better able to guide our students. Edu family, it is the end of the school year already, and plans are underway for the new school year. Let us, as we plan, to think about how we can utilize it in our various capacities. As a principal, as a vice principal, as a teacher, as a year supervisor, whatever your role is within the school context, let us think about how deeply we'll be utilizing the SEL to motivate our students, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and what it is that we'll be doing for the future. Thank you so much, Mrs. Johnson Williams, for being here with us And we will have her next week with us as well, where she'll be sharing with us some valuable information. Remember to tune in on Thursday with Analysis Thursday with Royston Tibby, who is our guest analyzer for the month of Jubilant July. Thank you so much, my Edu family, for always tuning in, for liking the videos, for sharing, for commenting. Your private messages, your calls, they are well appreciated. Our mission is to empower you, and as we empower you educators, we expect that you will go likewise and empower our students.